guys, welcome to this week's edition of From Ordinary to Extraordinary, where you can experience an entire life and business turnaround through understanding and applying the psychology and the strategies of mastery and greatness. Now, today we're going to reboot The Secret. You remember that one? But before we get to that, let me just ask you a couple of questions. Number one, just suppose for a moment that I could teach you how to attract and create anything that you really want. And just suppose for a moment as well that even if you tried the law of attraction many, many times and you think it hasn't worked for you, that you haven't been told the whole story. And imagine that when you know the whole story, it's going to make things come to you in rapid fashion. That I can help you have a complete life and business turnaround in all areas of your life, financially, relationally, mentally, physically, and spiritually. Would that be of interest to you? Now, you may or may not know who I am, depending upon how much you've been around my Facebook page or known about me throughout the years. So let me just give you a little backstory real quickly. You know, you might remember me from The Secret. I was the genie guy. Remember that? Your wish is my command. Right? I was also the gratitude guy, the guy who told you to wake up every single morning and say thank you, and to think about 3 things that you're grateful for. I was also the guy who told you on Oprah that you have to do something, right? You know, the whole, remember the scene about the little boy visualizing the bicycle and the next morning it appears in his front yard? Well, how is that one working for you? You know, let's please remember that I've reminded you numerous times that 60% of the word attraction is action. You have to do something. You know, I catapulted into the public arena. After The Secret, I was on Oprah numerous times, Larry King Live. I was on the Today Show almost once a month. Fortune Magazine wrote a full feature article on me. In fact, I even judged the Miss America contest in 2008. But there's a dark side of the story as well. And maybe you know that, but let me fill you in if you don't. After rising to the absolute top, you know, I built an Inc. 500 company, one of the fastest growing, most successful businesses in the United States, privately held businesses in the United States. After rising to the top, I fell very, very far. You know, in 2009, my company and I had an event, and 3 of my friends lost their lives. And I say friends because regardless of what the media told you, regardless of what you saw on the internet, I cared about these people. And it hurt deeply. But it didn't end there. If you've ever lost somebody, you know how that feels. It's tough. But it didn't end there, because I subsequently lost my Inc. 500 company that it took me the better part of 20 years working 7 days a week to build. I lost my life savings. I lost my home. I lost my so-called friends. And I eventually lost my liberty. And so, you know, the internet went abuzz. Everybody, which they tend to do, right? The haters came out in triple fold. They started saying things like, well, James obviously doesn't know anything about the law of attraction. Well, let me tell you that anyone who states that, it proves by that very statement that they know nothing about the law of attraction, because it doesn't work in the way that many people have romanticized it. That's a romanticized ideal that at some point in time you're going to reach this perfect place where, you know, nothing bad or wrong ever happens in your life. You know, bees don't sting you and your crap doesn't stink. Right? I mean, it just isn't going to happen. James doesn't know anything about the laws of the universe. Well, guess what? There are 7 laws of the universe. I wrote about that all the way back in 1998 in my first book called The Science of Success. But nonetheless, if it were true they're going to reach this perfect place where everything is perfect and we live in nirvana, then that would mean, now think about this, that Mother Teresa didn't know anything about the laws of the universe, that Gandhi didn't know anything about the laws of the universe, that Socrates didn't, even Jesus the Christ knew nothing about the laws of the universe because, they had bad and horrible and difficult things happen in their life. Seriously? And so we need to reframe, and we need to get a grip, and I hope that makes sense to you, on really how the law of attraction works. Because, here's a fact. The hero is only a hero because he's in the arena. He's battling. He's marred. He's scarred. He's maybe bloodied. And he's facing what appears to be insurmountable odds, right? And that's what makes him heroic. That's what inspires us so much about a hero, is that he faces apparent insurmountable odds and he overcomes them. And so, we're talking about being a hero here today. We're talking about using the law of attraction. And, the media asks me consistently now, well, James, after all you've been through, do you still believe in the law of attraction? And, just a moment, I know that it's only 1/7 of the equation. I'm going to share a couple of the other laws with you here in a moment. But I do believe that the law of attraction works. I just don't believe that it works in the way we want to think of it, as we romanticize it, as we fantasize it. Now stick with me here, because I'm going to give you a couple of the other laws. I'm going to eventually give you 6 points of how to use the law of attraction and other laws to attract and create anything that you want, to have a total life and business turnaround, financially, if you need to do that, relationally, mentally, physically, spiritually, every single area of life. You interested? So take some good notes. Now, first thing is that we have to understand one of the other laws of the universe is the law of polarity. The law of polarity, and again, I wrote about this all the way back in 1998. So it's not new. It just might be new to you. This may be the first time you've heard it. Law of polarity says everything has an equal and an opposite. Right? Every up has a down. Every right has a left. Every inside has an outside. Every apparent good has an apparent what? Bad. And so, many people are wanting to collect all the quarters in the world, but they only want the heads and they don't want the tails. Well, how many quarters are you going to collect? 0. None. Right? Because every single quarter I've ever seen in my life, has both a heads and a tail. Likewise, dollar bills, front and a back. You with me? You following the metaphor? And so, in my book, Harmonic Wealth, which was a New York Times bestseller in 2008, I wrote about intentions and anti-intentions. And I encouraged you, if you read the book, you might want to revisit it, that you will set your intentions, but you also must set your anti-intentions. And people go, what? What's that? Anti-intentions? Well, understand the law of polarity. If you're going to attract this, you're going to also attract the opposite. You're going to have in your life the greatness, you're going to have the difficulties. You with me? And so here's the magic. When you define the anti-intentions, when you define the difficulties in advance, then you can stay grateful and inspired, because those difficulties will assure you that you're on the right track. You with me? You see, you're not going to get everything that you want and not have the challenges that come with them. It'd be like trying to start your car with only one pole hooked up on the battery. It's not going to happen. You decrease your magnetism, you decrease your power, and nothing's ever going to happen. You only have one pole hooked up, and so this begs the whole idea about being positive, right? And I want to make sure I look at my notes here, because I have a lot of good things I want to share with you. But my hero, one of my heroes, Leonardo da Vinci, said, all of the world is experienced only through our perceptions. So what has to happen for you to perceive your difficulties and challenges as a reinforcement that you are doing something great. You see, Mary Margarita and Billy Budweiser, I always use them as poor examples. It's not really, because they're sitting on the couch doing nothing. When you get into the arena, it's going to be difficult, and you're going to have to overcome those difficulties. Does that make sense to you? That's the law of polarity. Now, I could talk about this in much more depth and detail, but I want to keep this as brief as possible today. Excuse me. Now, one other law that I want to talk about, besides the law of attraction, briefly, is the law of correspondence. The law of correspondence basically tells us that the entire universe is repeating patterns. Now, fractal geometry tells us the very same thing. Everything in this universe is repeating patterns. And so consequently, the law of correspondence basically says, simply says, for today, if you want to know how anything works, look at how something else works, because everything is repeating patterns. You with me? So you want to build a multi-million-dollar business. Many people do. Then you go and look at what it takes to build a $1 million body. Right? Now, by the way, your body is worth $45 million according to Wired magazine. So you're already walking around as a multimillionaire just in your body. $45 million it's worth. And I would ask you the question, how are you treating it? How are you taking care of it? But if you're going to build a body and a business that are equivalent, then look at what it takes to build a body. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of discipline. It takes pushing against bigger and heavier weights. It takes being out of breath. Now, is the same true in business? You bet it is. You bet it is. And if you're trying to build a business and you think, or you're buying into someone telling you it's going to happen just easily and effortlessly, well, you need to listen to someone different, because it's not going to happen that way. It's going to be difficult. And so consequently, when you understand that, and you understand the law of polarity, which says, I'm going to take the bad, the apparent bad with the good, then you start to embrace both sides of the polarity, and you hook up both poles of your battery, and now you're going somewhere. You follow the metaphor? Now, one other thing I want you to understand before we get into these 6 points of how to attract anything you want and create whatever you want in your life is that how to do it is not your job. We live in a world that wants tactics. We want strategies. We want, tell me how. People come to me for coaching and they ask me, how am I going to do this? Well, how is not your job? Because nobody knows how. Steve Jobs didn't know how to build Apple when he started. Steve Jobs had a vision. He was on a mission, and he gave his entire self to it, and Apple was the result. He figured out the how along the way. He brought in people to make Apple what it is today, or what it became, right? He didn't know how until he did it. I didn't know how to build a $10 million business until I did it. I've done it. But I didn't know how when I first did it. And so, how is not your job. How belongs to the universe. Your job is to figure out very clearly what you're going to create and why it's imperative for you to do this. Why you must do this. Does that make sense to you? The what and the why are your job. How is up to the universe. How is up to the process. How is up to God, if you will. How is going to continue to unfold as you take one step, one day at a time. And so, now, let's talk about this what. What and why. Because why is purpose. Why is what inspires you. Why gets you out of bed every morning when you don't feel like it? You know, there's a lot of mornings I don't feel like getting up at 4 a.m. One of them was this morning. I didn't feel like getting up at 4 a.m. But my why, my purpose gets me up because I'm up to great things, and so should you be. The what is specifically your vision, your intention of what you're going to create in the world. Now, this is dangerous. The what is dangerous, particularly in today's world, because we live in this world where everybody is a so-called expert, right? Everybody is all over social media being an expert. Everyone's got a podcast. Everyone's got, you know, oh, follow me, let me teach you this, you know, I've done this, follow me and do what I did and you'll get. It's all about the how. And you've got to be careful because we live in a society that is caught up in simple success, fast fame, and get-rich-quick gimmicks. And those things don't work. And that's why many people say the law of attraction doesn't work, because they're caught up in simple success, fast fame, get-rich-quick gimmicks. This is why you got to have a coach. You have to have a coach because you've got to choose the what you're going to do in this world, in this universe, in this lifetime. And it takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes a tremendous amount of self-awareness. And it's very difficult for all of us to take an objective view on ourselves and to say, hey, this is what I'm really gifted at. This is what I'm really good at. You know, not this romantic ideal that I think is going to be oh so cool or make me oh so much money, but this is the gifts I've come in with. You see, I believe we are all gifted. And when we find those gifts, your unique genius, and we begin to develop those, we can get to a place of mastery and a place of complete fulfillment. Does that make sense to you? And so that's why you need a coach. You need someone who's going to say to you, hey, wait a second, all right? You're not going to be the next best-selling author. It's just not what you're here to do. You're not going to be the next great speaker. It's just not what you're here to do. You're not going to be Kobe Bryant. That's just not what you're here to do, okay? You got to be you, and you got to find your gifts. And that's the what. And that is worth its weight in gold. It takes brutal self-awareness, brutal self-honesty, and being truly positive. Truly positive is not this romanticized Pollyanna expecting the best. Write this in your notes. True positive thinking is not expecting the best. That's illusion. True positive thinking is accepting that what is happening is the best for your future development, advancement, and growth. And see, the fact is you grow the most in the crucible of challenge. You grow the most when you're pushing against great odds. You grow the most. Why? Because it brings out the best within you. And so acceptance is critical. True positive thinking is acceptance. Now, I'm going to come back to this, but I hope you get it. It's not expecting the best, because sometimes the worst is the best. You with me? Sometimes the things you think are best, you get them and then you realize, oh my God, he's a bastard. Why did I want him? Right? Oh my God, he was so perfect and I asked for him and here he is, and oh my God, why did I ask for him? I got to get out of this thing. Right? Sometimes the worst is the best because we're not self-aware. We think we want things, but we don't really know what the polarity of those things are. We don't really know what the price of those things are. All right. Now, 6 points. Put these in your notes. How can you attract anything you want? Financially, relationally, mentally, physically, spiritually. Number 1, make sure it's what you want. Now you think, James, that's easy. I know what I want. No. I talk to people every single day who try to tell me what they want. They don't even know who they are. How can you tell me what you want when you don't even know what you are? Who you are, rather. You can't. Again, we come back to self-awareness. I'm going to do a whole session on this, from ordinary to extraordinary, 1 week, sometime, on self-awareness, because there's nothing more important than this. Being truly self-aware is knowing who you really are and not trying to be anyone else, not trying to do anything else, wanting to do what you're here to do. And that's when life takes off on fire. Does that make sense to you? Number one, know what you want. Make sure it's what you want, not what society tells you you should want. Get a coach. Get someone who's going to confront you and to be brutally honest with you and to help you and support you to find out who you really are, to find your unique gifts. Number two, let go of how. Let go of the how. All right? Because how is not your job. And I can promise you it's not going to unfold and happen the way you think it's going to. You know, who would have ever imagined in a million years that my path towards my intention would take me through prison and through a great crash and through loss of friends and all those things? I wouldn't have imagined it. Be careful what you ask for, right? Because it's not going to happen the way you think it should or the way you want it to. I can promise you that. Let go of the how. Hold on to the what and the why. Number three, understand that the path is going to be fraught with dangers. It's going to be fraught with difficulty. It's going to have great challenges. It's going to attract the opposite. You know, we live in a society that wants to be famous. I just got an email before I jumped on here, you know, from a teacher saying, here's why it's important to be famous. You know what? Being famous is not that great. Brad Pitt said it best. He said, fame is a bitch. Right? I can relate. You want to put yourself out as a target in the world? Okay? Get some thick skin. It's going to be fraught with danger and difficulty. You're going to always attract the opposite as you go. That's your anti-intention. Number four, acceptance. We've talked about this. Acceptance is not a weakened state. Acceptance is the most powerful state that you can have. It's the most difficult state because we think we want things a certain way. Acceptance is a surrender to life itself, to a recognition of, hey, this is making me bigger, better, faster, bolder. This is bringing out the best within me. This is teaching me so much more. I don't want it easy. Hey, come on, don't wish for an easier life. That's illusion. Wish for greater capacity, greater capability to get through the challenges life brings. And you only do that by pushing up against those challenges. You with me? All right, number five, hold the vision no matter what. You know, you don't grow the most smelling the roses and the sweet perfume. You grow the most when you are going after it full on, big time. And the true test of character is not persistence when you see a light at the end of the tunnel. The true test of character is persistence and continuance and perseverance when you don't see the light. Number six, be willing to sacrifice. Now, that's not a popular idea. You know, a lot of people don't want to sacrifice. Well, let me tell you something. There's always a price for the prize. Let's lose the fear of being willing to sacrifice for what we're going after in the world. I mentioned some names. Mandela, right? Mother Teresa, Socrates, Gandhi, many others paid a great price for their prize. Are you willing to pay it? Let's lose the fear of sacrifice, because the true meaning of sacrifice means to make sacred. Think about that. If you go back in history, the true meaning of sacrifice is to make sacred. Make your life a sacred gift. Put it all on the altar, they may say in the Christian tradition. Put it all out on the field. Give everything. Go to bed every single night completely tired yet inspired. Exhausted because you've given everything. And you will become legendary. You'll become legendary. And not only will you use the law of attraction appropriately, but the universe will line up behind you for your mastery and your greatness. I want to thank you for being here. I'd encourage you to come back and review this again and again and again, because repetition is the second law of learning and transformation. And I'll see you again next week. Until we talk again, as always, share this with someone who needs it right now. You know who they are. I'll talk with you soon. Stay awake, love life, and be epic.